first speakers for today. And Larry, Arrow, and Getty are going to talk about what does it mean to work for the Compound Protocol. So without further ado, let's welcome all three of them on stage and welcome.
Thanks, Kartik. Is the floor ours now?
You're all good.
Sweet. I guess the first thing I'll say is thanks so much to the global crew. I mean, they made it so easy for us. All we have to do is show up and talk about Compound, which we're happy to do. I'm the Compound grants lead. My name is Larry Sukernik. And just to give you guys a little bit of background on Compound grants before we dive right into the summit. But Compound grants is a community-funded and independent grants program that was really created by just a group of Compound fans. And so it's not related to the core team, and it was funded actually by the Treasury, which was we were one of the first grants programs to do that right after Uniswap. And really our focus is pretty simple. It's to fund really cool development happening on top of Compound. We've funded so far, over 30 different grants to many individuals, and we will continue funding many more for months to come. We're sort of on pause right now in terms of the grants program, as we're, we ran it for 6 months, and now we're in the process of thinking about how to scale it to make it bigger, faster, and even stronger than it was before. And so, you could find more about Compound grants at compoundgrants.org. Or you could go to Compound's Telegram or Discord to learn more about what the community is up to. But, we'll dive right in and just give you guys a taste for what it means to work for Compound. This panel I'm really excited about because, we all sort of are, and Getty and I, we all sort of met on the internet. So this is a very internet DeFi native panel. Getty, do you guys want to give a quick intro to yourselves?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Getty Hill. Joined the Compound community a long time ago. Back when I was working with Grapefruit Trading and did trading for the last few years. And now I'm with GFX Labs in our project, and we do all sorts of fun things with Compound, and I'm a huge Compound advocate.
So R00 or Arrow, whichever you choose. I've been working with Compound for a long time now. I found Compound about mid 2019 to late 2019 and just was in awe of it. Like, everyone who comes into DeFi is like, wow, this is so cool. So I just looked at Compound. I was like, I want to know how this works, right? So I went down on read all the code. It was like incredible. Was on the Discord for months, and like initially before governance, not much to do, but then mid 2020 came and that was my time. And then since then I've been helping out on proposals through any way I can and, making impact in Compound.
I think one of the first things maybe we could chat about is like, what does it mean to work for Compound Protocol? I think a lot of people, they have, regular jobs working for companies, very standard recruiting process. And then they hear about people working for protocols, and it's kind of a weird thing to do. And it's not clear how to even get started. But can you kind of talk about like what you think it means to work for a protocol and how you even got started in the first place? I know you just mentioned a little bit, but like practically, what do people have to do to start working for Compound?
I'll go and say that, I sat in the community for a long time, long before there was like a Compound token. So there wasn't like a big reason back then to get like super involved. It was just like chatting with the team, mostly onboarding users, giving feedback on like the product and like how Compound V1 worked, right? It wasn't really until like about a year and a little more than a year and a half ago now that like the comp token came out, and that there was like this new incentive structure for community members to like participate and actually help like grow the protocol in a more active way than just relying on the core labs team back when they were kind of building their product that everyone's familiar with and using today. So I think in my mind, just having been around the protocol enough, you occasionally will ask yourself, well, why doesn't it have this feature? Why doesn't it have that feature? Why doesn't this thing work? Why isn't that thing there? And at least for me, the biggest impetus for my participation was wanting my first one was wanting the wrapped Bitcoin collateral factor to be higher. And so like the compound has these cool community autonomous proposals where instead of needing like the gigantic, well, today it's 65,000, but back then it was 100,000 comp to actually make a proposal, you could get like 100 comp instead. So I went, bought my bag of 100 comp, like prior to this owned no comp, which was like a fair amount of money for me at the time. Bought my 100 bag of comp, went online, like learned how to make a cap, posted the cap up there, and then just started like pestering and messaging people being like, hey, like this is a good idea. Like wrote out the methodology on the forums, and then just tried to keep sharing that with people until we got enough people on board to be like, oh, okay, this is a good idea. This can work. And then like made a lot of friends that way. And it kind of just snowballed from there. Yeah.
So for me, like if I'm going to start from the very beginning, I actually started out writing just articles on basically every proposal. I would go very deep into the diff changes and the reasoning behind yes and no, and trying to give people an unbiased opinion on how to vote, which would be very useful nowadays. It's kind of don't have enough time to do that anymore. But the community was very applauded that, definitely. And as I was really well positioned, question from the okay, I was very well positioned to start building things on my own and contributing things because I saw how everything was moving, and then I just got myself in and positioned myself to start contributing independently. I think that contributing to a DAO is very different than a normal job because a lot of self-guidance, and you really can contribute in any way. It's not like anyone's going to tell you like, no, you're not welcome here, right? Really, any DAO that exists nowadays just needs more people doing more things, and almost anyone can do something which is helpful to the DAO in some way and get paid for their work.
We looks like have a question from the audience. I'll read it out loud. There are a lot of DeFi lending protocols that do similar things. In your mind, what makes Compound different? What sets it apart from other DeFi protocols that make you enjoy working with it so much? Well, I can go first, and then curious what you guys think. I think generally that's the right positioning, which is a lot of the DeFi projects functionally, like product-wise, kind of do similar things. I think culturally, though, is where they start to differ. And my sense is, and certainly what made Compound appeal to me personally is, the community, I would say, is way more conservative, I think, relative on the risk side in particular, relative to some of the other kind of cowboy DeFi projects. And, I think, if you want to build a project over many, many dozens of years and make it as successful as it can be over the long term, you have to think about risk deeply and think about the long term, as opposed to some projects that may be optimized for short-term gains at the expense of long-term thinking. And second, I would say, I think the website just looked really good, and the brand goodwill looked really good relative to some of the other projects, which are really, really confusing to use. Or Getty, what do you guys think?
Yeah, so I'm just I was started working with Compound really when it was the only one, like mid 2019, late 2019. It was Compound and Aave was there, but very small. And then other than that, I don't think there was anyone else. And I really just enjoyed my time with Compound so much. I love the community, the Compound team, and I'm in a position where I'm really well positioned to contribute to the Compound protocol, and that's where my time is the most useful. Again, being conservative and thinking in the long term is really nice. You don't have a pop-up project which is just here and all of a sudden clone someone else's code or something. So that's nice. Compound team and community is just really incredible.
Yeah, that's the big difference for me. I mean, I'm a fan of pretty much all the main protocols, like Compound, Aave, MakerDAO, but Compound to me is the one that has the most embracing community. It's definitely if you're new to the community, even if you're just a regular user, it's a great feeling to join the Discord and ask a question and get an immediate reply from a community member, or even Robert chills out on Discord all the time. That's a great feeling to know that the whole team is like there and everyone's just trying to help everyone out and build a better product. I used to like be very interested in like MakerDAO. That was kind of like my first like big foray into like, I don't know, DeFi. And I think I chose MakerDAO at an awkward time because it was when the depegging was happening and DAI was at like 95 cents forever. And there was the purple paper and a lot of bureaucracy. So it was like back in the day, there was only two options really. And Compound was the one that was most embracing and never left.
Yeah, and I think, you know, for folks who are not exactly sure what we mean by all this sort of stuff, like just go to the forums, right? And look at the sophistication of the discussions. And I think you'll find a really fleshed out, thoughtful community. And, you know, I look at some of the other forums and, you know, everyone's trying to make a quick buck. This is, you know, not the case for Compound. And I think that is appealing to a lot of people. You know, I think one of the challenges a lot of projects, and certainly, you know, Compound and Compound grants have, is knowing, you know, as a contributor, you're sort of not sure what exactly you should work on and what's the highest priority thing for the protocol that you could be spending your time on in the next, you know, few months. How do you guys think about, okay, here's what I'm going to work on over the next few months that is actually useful to the protocol and to the community?
If you're new to the protocol, and you have, you know, a decent understanding of DeFi, or at least just like familiar and used Compound before, I say go the selfish route and say, what do I want in the protocol that's not currently there? It's very likely that other people also want that thing that you would want, and then just start there and make it a passion project, and learn from there. If you join the protocol and you truly do not know what to do, but you want to get involved, then we have a list of requests for proposals on Compound grants of ideas for people. Or of course, if you just join the Discord chat or the forum and say, hi, I have these skills and I want to help, we'll throw a lot of things at you and you can choose from the long list.
Yeah, so for me, it's generally a lot of just, I'd say, temperature checking, right? Like seeing what people have been talking about over the past few weeks in Discord, what people want, what comes up often. And there's a lot of things which are just things that people want that haven't been a priority. So like if I have free time, one of those few things would probably get on the agenda. It's very subjective, which is again, something which is specific to working for a DAO where you are essentially your own boss and you decide what you're going to work on. But based on community, like feel, you can figure out what is going to be important.
We can talk about the sexy stuff now, which is getting paid from Compound Protocol. And I think we have the right folks to talk about that because, you know, both Getty and R have been paid from the treasury. And Getty in particular, I think you're the only sort of, you know, salaried employee, team member, contributor of the protocol, which is kind of cool. I think for a lot of people, it's a little bit awkward, right? People know exactly how much you're getting paid and it's all transparent. And can you kind of like walk us through what it means to get paid from Compound Protocol and how you personally feel about it? Maybe you don't like the transparency of it, maybe you do, but how should people think about, you know, working for a protocol and public compensation figures?
Yeah, so I'll preface it by that Compound for me is like a passion and something that I like enjoy. Like I have the comp I'm earning for the protocol for me is not in my mind a salary. None of that will probably ever get sold. It's just going towards my already position in the protocol. So, and when I got started in the protocol and started working on project, there was no grants program. So it was even more ambiguous at the time as to like how you actually got paid to do work. So I think for me personally, and from what I've learned over the last year about figuring out what the protocol does need and what's valuable to the protocol, it is a lot of, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that the protocol needs to be working on. And for me in particular at the time, it was like this Oracle problem. So for some of you might be familiar, if you've been in crypto for a while, which is probably most people watching the ETH Global stuff, you remember like the November 2020 like DAI price happening on Compound, where the protocol functioned as expected, but because of how it was configured, it wasn't an ideal outcome. And that was like my call to action to like, okay, no one was fixing this for a few months. I'll figure this out. How am I going to get paid? Don't really know. And it was an extremely awkward process come like, all right, we did a lot of work here. A lot of value was provided, but how do I get paid? I think even today, it's like we're still in the very early days of like DAOs. So it's like only a year and a half of Compound DAO. So everyone's still figuring it out. But at least today, there are the grants programs. If you are curious about trying to get paid, talking to Larry and myself or other community members there, you can get a very good sense of like what compensation might look like, what milestones you can reach to get that compensation so that you're getting paid before the actual work's performed. In my case, like all the work was performed and then I asked to get paid, which makes it even more awkward. And then I guess the other half of that question is like, how is it to know that like everyone knows what I'm getting paid and that it's like a bit of like a political issue, like no matter which way you cut it, like the sense that everyone knows what the president gets paid in the United States and so on and so forth and all like the public servants. For my particular grant, I think a lot of it right now is back pay for a lot of the work that was performed. That was kind of the preface it was submitted under was like, I did 6 months worth of work here. That was a lot of work. Let's run it out for 6 months. And at that point, we'll revisit the topic and say like, hey, am I still contributing commensurate value to what is being rewarded to me in the community's eyes? Because it is all totally built on the Compound protocol. If the community were to say like, you know what, fuck this Getty guy, he's not doing a good job. They could just throw up a proposal. Anyone could who had the votes, and they could just stop paying me whenever they wanted. So I'm very well incentivized right now to make sure I keep doing productive work for the protocol in the future if I want to keep earning that amount. So it's a really interesting set of incentives that is totally new. But if anyone ever has questions about this stuff, do reach out to me.
I know, or I should say, I suspect a lot of people watching this have worked in big tech or are currently working in big tech and are. I mean, you've worked in big tech too. How does it? What's the for a bit, right? But what was that? What was the experience like working in big tech and then sort of going to Compound and working for the protocol? What are the things you like more about Compound, less potentially? Kind of walk people through that transition.
So big tech, right? You obviously depending on your position, but in general, you're given a task, right? And it's quite limited scope. You work on the same thing generally for a long period of time. I guess Compound is about the polar opposite you can get, where your skill set is similar, but you're doing completely different things. And right, there's a lot more to what you should be doing, right? You're thinking, what should I be doing rather than actually doing, right? A lot of lobbying, a lot of, right, person-to-person skills, which you need to have to work for a DAO, at least at this current time, right? You have to be on the forums, explaining your reasoning behind what you're doing, and then actually executing it, right? People aren't going to be holding your hands, and it's something where it requires a lot more independence and drive than working for a big tech company. I think for a lot of people, this is really good, right? Big tech is, well, right, you get paid nicely and your impact is limited, and it's quite easy to just get content at big tech. Working for DAOs keeps you on your feet, keeps you up to date on all the, newest tech, and, you got to keep running.
And then I'm sure what everyone is thinking, what about compensation? If you're working for big tech, presumably you're still there because of the money. Do you think it's possible to make similar amounts of money working for DAOs, Compound, or even more amounts of money?
I think that all three of us know it is definitely possible to make more money working for DAOs and big tech, definitely.
Substantially more.
I know we're running a little bit short on time, so one more question for you guys. But you've been working for Compound for a while now, right? I think you guys are probably some of the leading contributors for the protocol. Knowing what you know now after working for the protocol for probably years now, what sort of advice would you give to the newcomer or someone who's considering starting to work for Compound?
I can go first. I'd say for a newcomer, just like don't be afraid to just, come onto the Discord and say who you are, say you want to help out. Like Compound, right, is such, on paper, such a large company, but we are very welcoming to new contributors. And like, if you want to get started, there's always going to be someone who's there to help you at the beginning and, tell you what tools we're using and be able to answer your questions. Even for me, there were people who are willing to answer my questions at every point when I was starting out. And there's always something to be done in the protocol. You just have to, not be afraid to get your feet wet, come into the Discord and, get started.
Yeah, I think that's well said. There will be times that you'll get discouraged because unlike a big tech company here, there is some extra like people skills that you need in order to succeed in that. You have to, occasionally explain your stuff. But on the bright side, there's substantially more people who want to see developers and other community members and whatnot join the protocol and be productive contributors. And we're all willing to, I think, put a lot of resources into helping onboard those new community members who are going to help us build the protocol into being the best it can possibly be.
Awesome. And I would mirror that. I would say, if you're working for a large company, you're sort of like very much a cog in the machine, right? And no one, or very few people, I think, like that feeling. Working for a protocol, it initially may seem like you could potentially be stuck doing some minor tasks that no one really notices, but it really, anyone has the option and the ability to work on the thing, to Getty's point, that you want to see in the protocol, and take it from, hey, I have this vision in my head, I think it's a little crazy, I'm not going to talk about it publicly, to all of a sudden working on it on the forums and making it a thing. I think that's a very powerful thing that many people who work for traditional companies may not be used to. Certainly I had to get comfortable with that sort of power. Getty, Art, thank you so much, guys, for the time. I think we're running out. I'll hand it back to Kartik now.
Thank you so much, Larry, Getty, and Arrow. This was an amazing discussion. I think just maybe to summarize, I think the best thing about this thing is that I know you kind of implicitly implied, but like anybody can be part of this from any place in the world. And that to me is so exciting that you sort of now actually have a level playing field, that you wouldn't have to be sort of bound by a region or some certain prerequisites or a college degree or something to contribute. You actually are normalizing it to be skill-based and interest-based. So this is incredible, and Compound has been doing an amazing job with this. So thanks for that awesome discussion. And I think with that, we're ready to move on to our next talk.